It's an honor to have Mr. Damodar Mauzo here. He is one of India's literary giants and has won three of the great awards in the last 30 years. The Gyanpith coming in 2022, the Sahitya Academy in 83, and the Pai, that literary award in, I think, 2011 or so. So he has a fine body of writing in Konkani, which is the language of Goa, of course, and partly of Maharashtrian, partly of Karnataka also. And it is something that he has crafted in a very elegant and it's like everyday happenings which you capture and develop into short stories, into your novels, and which have won these many awards. Another thing that is not known, if I may, is that when the tragic killings took place of our journalist friend Gauri Lankesh, and then followed by Kalburgi and Pansare, Mr. Mauzo was also on the list. So he has had to live with a security for quite a few years. So we need to appreciate the courage of the person. And I would ask you to please.
So I think on that, let's
please
all
applaud his.
Let us all applaud his courage.
Independence and courage in not backing down. As Shovade said yesterday, don't back down from what you believe in. So he doesn't have any of his books, so we're not going to have a reading. But I'm going to just ask him to tell us what compels him to write these very powerful stories, and where does he place his work in the current context of pressure on dissent and dissonance. We've seen some incidents of that in the past few days only.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the introduction. Well, you mentioned about the courage. I think no one requires courage to write things which you are convinced. When I write something, I'm committed to it. I'm convinced that I'm writing the right thing. So there is no courage required for that. That's one thing. I've been writing for the last 63 years. And right from the day one, around 1819 or so. My first story was published in 1963. Many of you must not have been born. Your parents probably were not born also that time. Even that story taught me a lesson. Why I'm telling you, dissent is not necessarily against outsiders. It can be against yourself. I'll just start with my first story, which I appeared in 63. It was about, I'll just brief up. When it was published in translation, I wrote it about a young man who was involved in freedom movement of freedom struggle of Goa. And you know, India became independent in 1947, but Goa had to wait till 1961 to get liberated from the colonial clutches. Yeah, I don't know how many of you know about it. Goa is the smallest state in our country, and probably you don't know, you may not know, that Goa was under the Portuguese regime for 450 years. Unlike Britishers who ruled over India for 150 years, Goa was under the Portuguese for 450 years. That was our fate. And when India became independent, Goa continued to remain a colony until 1961, when Goa was liberated. So my first story, which was published, was 1963, was about a young man who was a freedom fighter, a freedom movement, and he had to run away from Goa because otherwise would have been arrested. And that was the fate of the freedom fighters during those days. As you know, Goa was liberated in December 1961, and within few days, the train started. We had our own railway, which was called Western Indian Portuguese Railway, which was running only between two stations within Goa, running a distance of about 60 to 80 kilometers, that's all. So, when Goa was liberated, the first train that entered from the rest of India, the man was on that train. It was running late, and when he got down at Madgaon station, he had to catch the last train, come to Kortalim and walk a distance. And remember, 1961, there was no electricity in villages. In my village, I saw electricity in 70s, early 70s. So this man had to go to his house, walking quite a distance in the night because the train was late. It was past 9. And he meets somebody. He had his love in the same village. He meets the girl. And he said he was surprised that she has come to meet him halfway. So who told you that I am coming? So my caretaker of the house, she says yes. Then they walked along. I'm just telling you the brief story of it. They walk along and to her house. Her house is nearer, so she takes him to her house, and he asks about her mother. She says she was looking for you, and then he knocks at the door, and in that night, the mother opens the door with the lantern in hand, and recognizes this young man, and then she asks. He tells her, "How are you, Mai?" She said, "I'm fine." But the name of the girl was Mary. Said Mary was waiting for you. Unfortunately, he did not turn up. He said, "But I met her. She brought me right to the door." Who? Mary. She died 2 years back. So he was he was sweating. He was scared that he was all the while talking and walking with the ghost. So she hurriedly says goodbye to her and reaches his house, which is in the neighborhood, where the caretaker opens the door, and he says, "Are, do you know?" He's asking him, "Why are you sweating so much?" He said, "Do you know, I met Mary." Then he says, "Mary died 2 years back." So I did not know. Her mother told me just now. "You met her mother? She died 1 year back." He says. So that was the story. I'm just telling you the kind of story that I wrote when I was in late teens. Then the story picked up and went in translation, and I was lucky to get it published in some illustrated weekly or so in Mumbai. So a friend of mine one day met me and said, they call me Bhai. So Bhai, I read your ghost story. And suddenly it struck me that the first story that I had written was a ghost story. And the ghost in which I don't believe in. So that day I decided I will never write a ghost story again. The story in which I don't believe in. So that was the first dissent I had against me. So why I'm saying, I think every writer writes because he has something to say against the establishment, against the rule of the society, against something evil that is happening in your community or in society in public. So that is the reason why any writer, for that matter, writes, and his writing is necessarily a writing of dissent.
Well, we know what the fate of dissent is in different parts of the world, not just in this country. How do you locate your own writing and your own life in that process? Because whether it's the present political environment or what is happening, say, in the United States or Europe or anywhere else, it is extremely challenging, you know. So how do you locate your own thinking, writing in that process?
No, as I said, why I write, because I have to take exception to things, wrong things going on in society. I have been critical of every evil thing that I see in society. I have been writing about environment. When the first fertilizer industry came to Goa, I was among the first to raise my voice against them. So I not only write stories, I wrote column in the newspaper, which also invited, a lot of anger from the establishment. But then it is I always write to what is, and I try to be true to myself. So whenever I think anything that happens which I don't agree with, I will always write about it. I don't see, during the Congress, coming to the politics, during the Congress times, I was critical of Congress because every government goes wrong somewhere. So we always raise voice against what is going on, whether in the government or in the society or around you, in your neighborhood. I always wrote about it. So nothing new that I was writing. But unfortunately, sometimes the government people, the people in the dispensation, they get angry with you because you are writing, you are telling the truth to the society. We show the mirror to the society, and sometimes they are uncomfortable with it. But I think this is the duty of every writer to take exception to whatever wrong that happens around you.
Well, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense also in the context of Goa, because Goa has for a very long time had a very strong environmental movement led by a number of people. Claude Alvarez, a number of others are involved. You're there, number of other activists and so on, who are constantly fighting corporate interests as well as the government. Because the latest thing, as we all know, in Goa, the Deputy Chief Minister, I think it is trying to degreen notified areas. He's basically, in Goa there's a very special, like in Assam you have the chor areas, the islands and all that. So in Goa you have the Khazan lands, which are the salt pans, salty marshes. You could explain that better.
Well, Khazan land is a special case in Goa. It is a low-lying land below the sea level. That is the speciality of Goa. Unfortunately, this land mafia is, spoiling everything. Yeah. In fact, and of course, with the blessing of the people in the dispensation, that is why these people are angry with me, or people with a kind of people like me. Besides that, I have been always in the movement, social movements, right from the beginning. And I consider myself lucky that I have been privy to everything that has happened to Goa, right from the freedom movement, right from the Portuguese rule in Goa, I was there in the streets of Goa when the military was marching in Goa to liberate Goa. It was a military action. Probably people do not know Operation Vijay. Which happened in December 1961. I was there in the streets to welcome our troops entering in Goa. Then the opinion poll. Do you know that there was an opinion poll in Goa to decide the fate of Goa? After liberation of Goa, Goa is a small territory. So both the neighbors, giant neighbors, Maharashtra on one side and Karnataka on the other side, they were claiming, they were staking their claim on Goa's territory. So we had to fight against it. We wanted our identity to be retained. Then the government, the central government, succumbed to our demand because of the agitating people, and they decided, for the first time in the history of India, we were given a referendum. They called it opinion poll. It was to decide whether we want merger with Maharashtra or we wanted to remain a separate state. At that time, it was the union territory in the beginning. So we had to go for an agitation. I was part of the movement, and I was very happy that in the end we achieved our goal. Goa remained separate.
An independent state.
In statehood, we did not get the statehood immediately.
No, UT,
but
no.
we avoided merger. So it was an anti-merger stand that we had taken, and we succeeded in it. The next was we demanded, we again took to states. I myself have suffered from lathi charge also. When I returned from a rally and I took out my shirt, my children, my wife, they were surprised. I did not feel pain because probably I was
Josh.
in that Josh. But then all blue colored, black. Anyway, that is not important. We had to lead an agitation to demand independent status to Goa, statehood to Goa. We wanted Konkani, our mother tongue, to be recognized as official language of Goa. We wanted the official language status to Konkani. And another thing, inclusion of Konkani in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. To speak about my language, according to Grierson, I'm talking about George Abraham Grierson, who conducted the first ever linguistic survey of India. He has mentioned that Konkani was the first to branch off from Maharashtrian Prakrit even before Marathi. But it so happened that because we were under the Portuguese, and do you know, Britishers never had any exception to the regional languages, education in that language or reading and writing. But then in Goa, the Portuguese had passed a law, a decree to ban the use of Konkani even in speech. They wanted to impose Portuguese language in writing, in speech on the people of Goa. It is to the credit of our people that they kept our language alive. Unfortunately, we lagged behind. But Goan readership was very much close to what was going on on the literary scenario of Marathi, Kannada, our neighbors, and also in English and Portuguese. And because our people, the Konkanis people, educated people, we were abreast of what is happening in literature, European literature. Because one thing, a good thing about Portuguese was that the Portuguese literature was not rich until a Nobel Prize was won by our José Saramago, José Saramago. But then they enrich itself by getting the best of European literature translated into Portuguese. It's a lesson for us. If you think your language is lagging behind, get the best of literatures from other languages and translate it into your languages. So we did it. So most of the Goan readers were abreast of the literary trends in Europe. At the same time, the best of Bengali literature translated into Marathi or Hindi were also read in Goa. So we did not lag behind the literary developments in our country. So the moment we found freedom of expression, we jumped on it, and within a decade or two, we caught up with the rest of the mainstream languages. And we wanted our place defined in the Constitution of India. So we took to streets to demand inclusion of Konkani in the 8th schedule of the Constitution, and by 1992 we achieved all our goals. Goa remained a separate state. Konkani got included in the 8th schedule, and before that we got the official language status to Konkani. So today Konkani is the official language of Goa. So why I'm telling you, I have been part of all the movements. I have been fighting, I have been taking to streets. So that reflects in my writings also. But one thing, I always stick to my conviction, my commitment, and the truth, which is truth to me.
Because all your struggles, because yours is a life of struggle, and you've been participating in all these movements. I mean, that has a resonance here also and in many parts of the Northeast, because dissent was a different kind here. It was seeking separation.
I find myself so many similarities.
Similarities, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I was also in a small state like Mizoram.
Right. But Mizo is an associate language. It is not in Schedule 8 yet. We hope it will get to Schedule 8. And the Sahitya Academy also recognizes Mizo as an associate language. So there are two things here. One is that I was just listening to you and thinking about the resonance of what you were doing in Goa and what the movements in Goa and here the fight was for a separate idea, a separate, shall we say, a separate identity. But through a process of cooperation and engagement, it has become a collaborative effort of part of the nation building effort. And it is also a separate state. It came that way in a different route. And perhaps people in Mizoram know only and may not know as much about Goa as you do about Mizoram, because many people in the Northeast think of Goa as a place to relax and beaches and all that. Many don't even know that there are beautiful mountains and hill ranges and so on, you know. So, and the process of fighting for rights and fighting for your identity is never over.
It's true, yeah. And you mentioned about the security provided to me. Well, I didn't show any courage as such, but I was strongly giving my backing to the movements that were led by Dabholkar, that were led by Pansari, that were led by Kalburgi. I had a close association with Mr. Kalburgi. Professor Kalburgi was a strong follower of Basavanda. And Basava is one of the saints whom I adore, revere. But then I have myself translated the works of Basava Vachana into Konkani. So I was very much associated with Kalburgi's works, and I was shocked to see that all these great giants who have contributed richly to our culture, our civilization, they are being assassinated and people remaining quiet. So I was part of the rallies that followed. And then one day, our brave journalist, Gauri Lankesh, was also assassinated during daytime. It was very sad happening. And within short time, they found that SIT committee, they found my name in the hit list of the perpetrators who were arrested later. And then they provided me the security. Frankly, I did not ask for security. Even after they took me in confidence saying that you need protection, we are going to provide you protection, I said, no, I don't need. At least in Goa, I don't need at all. Because I know my people. I have confidence in my people. And I tell you, Goans by nature, they only want good governance. They don't mind which government, which party comes to power. We want a power that will give us good governance. They will provide us good environment. During the Portuguese, I don't want to praise the Portuguese. I always criticize the colonial rule. But the Portuguese as such, they did not, they were very good people. In fact, I have love for them as Portuguese people, not as colonialist people. We were against the colonial rule, not the Portuguese people. So if I say this, many people get angry. They think that I am anti-national. I'm pro-Portuguese. And soon after liberation, that term became popular. Pro-Portuguese. Just call anybody pro-Portuguese and put in behind the bars.
Just like now you say somebody is anti-national or something.
So this tendency, what we are against is this attitude, this tendency of the people to call everything. If you raise your voice, your dissent is taken as personal, and then you are looked as if you are doing something which is against the nation, against the society, against the public. It is not so. We have to have an open mind. As writers, I think it is our duty to give voice to the voice of the people. That is what I have been doing, and nothing special about it.
I mean, I have just 2 points here. One is that, of course, freedom of expression is a constitutional right. So
Yes, sir.
dissent is a constitutional right also.
Yes,
because
right.
dissent includes the right to be different, have a different view. That's one. The other point is that most of the people who are involved in attacking the dissenters do not have any knowledge about what the dissenters are actually saying. Like you were saying about Dr. Kalburgi and so on. These are people with great contributions, not just to literature, but also to society. And I think many of the people who targeted them didn't really have a clue. They took the point that these people have a different political ideology, therefore they should be targeted.
But for your information, you will agree with me, all these saints are the greatest dissenters. You take any name, any saint of your knowledge, whether it is Basava, Basveshwara or Santa Tukaram, all these people have always raised their voice against the evil in society, against the establishment, against the power. And that is exactly what we are doing. I think any writer worth his salt is doing the same thing, raising his voice or using his pen to criticize the wrongs in governments or in society.
Yeah, basically to stand up against injustice
Yeah.
and speak the truth.
And if not the writers, who will stand, will face the power, who will take a stand against the power. Power should understand the importance of dissent. Power should understand the importance of disagreements. If we agree with everything in society, then why do we write? What is left to us for us to write? It's my opinion.
We'll open it up to people for questions and comments. So, very powerful points from Mr. Mauzo. Yeah. Just identify yourself.
My name is Kluanga. I would just like to ask a question regarding, very interesting to know about the Konkani, how the movement came up. The question I would like to ask is, especially with regards to identity, many of us identity based on around language, and like you said, identity based on politics also is there. I lived in Tamil Nadu for quite a few years, and one thing I found out was that in South, the Tamil people, regardless of religion, Hindu or Muslim, they're quite confident in terms of their Tamil identity in spite of polarization attempts. So in terms of the Konkani language and how the development went on, were there any kind of challenges that you faced along the way in terms of polarization, or did the Konkani identity help a lot in terms of the state also in terms of development? Thank you.
Yes to each of your questions. Yes, we fought unitedly to achieve our goals. You know, Konkani had to struggle because there was claim from the expansionist forces power against, across the borders, particularly Maharashtra, which always claimed that Konkani is the dialect of Marathi, and therefore Konkani speakers are Marathi speakers. It looks simple logic, but basically it is wrong. And I don't believe that there are only 22 languages in India. Yes, the Constitution has recognized 22 languages. Sahitya Academy has recognized 24 languages. But there are umpteen number of languages. And Dr. Ganesh Devi tells me hundreds of tribal languages living in Northeast India. So we have to preserve our languages. Yes, language is a major component of any culture. If you have a culture, you have a language. If you have a language, you have a culture. If you have culture, you have a civilization. And you have a right to preserve and conserve your culture. And that is what we did it. We showed an example, I would say, to the rest of the people. And you please learn from us, if you can. But it is a long struggle. We did not achieve anything overnight. We had to, struggle on two boundaries. We had to convince the people in the dispensation, and we had to show our strength. So taking to strengths, I'll tell you, I wrote one story, Band. Band is the strike, Band. Then during the agitation, we were giving a call to Band, Goa Band, for at least 5 bands major. Entire Goa was locked, stand still because of the agitation. But I personally, I have seen the evils of Band. So as an agitator, as a participant of the agitation, I gave a call for Band. But as a writer within me, wrote a story called Band, which was my voice against the concept of Band. So this is how the actor and activist, the writer and the activist within me act on two fronts sometimes and differently.
Sometimes contradictory.
But I agree with you that we have to struggle to keep our identity alive. And for that, your language is the major component of your culture. Preserve it.
Pradap, we have time for one more question.
Yeah, one more question. We'll take one more question, and after that, we'll move to the next session.
Dr. Sharma.
Very, very small one. What was the name of that ghost story? What did you call it?
Do not go away. Do not go away.
Do not go away. All
That was written in 63. So you can imagine, Tu Chunaka is the Konkani title.
Is there a part of a story that you would like to leave with us before we close? Or something that you would like to say before we close? It's open. It's open.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Well, as I said, in every story you will find a voice of dissent. But it is not a dissent against the dispensation or people in the power. Sometimes it is a call against whatever evil that happens, and the perpetrators, like the builders lobby now, the land sharks invading Goa, or the pollution that is happening, the damage to the environment, all these are dear to me. So I raise my voice against all that. What he was asking, another question. Yeah.
No, that's...
So that is what makes me, I would say, activist. So my activism, you can't take it away from my writings. So writing also another act of activism for me. But there are some stories which I have written blatantly against the power. Of course, certainly I have written them, but then I think sometimes it is necessary to show mirror to the power where they go wrong. But don't expect the dissent that you expect from me from the stories or from novels. The novel Carmeline is against the sufferings of the migrants, particularly those who went as ayahs, the lady folks who went to as ayahs to Gulf countries during 70s. Even now, whenever I write, it is something to do with something that is wrong is happening in our society. The voice of dissent will continue to be to prevail in my writings. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for listening. I mean, essentially you're fighting on all fronts, fighting against injustice on all fronts. So thank you for everything that you do and everything that you write.